All right. I think I figured out how to get it on all the systems. So I've got my phone on Instagram. I've got the rest of the stuff on stream. So, um, like I said, this is kind of. I just want to walk you guys through the journey that I went through, getting to where I am. Hopefully, you guys can send me some research on the stuff that I'm lacking in. And today is one of those things where I've got a lot of misunderstanding. And maybe you guys can send me some research. Maybe you guys can help me out with some of this. So when I was going through this and I was really fat, and there's pictures, and as soon as I figure out how to get the slides to work, I'll show you pictures of me. I was over 300 pounds for a while, and I was doing the calories in, calories out thing, and I was eating just like I was told, and I was within my calorie margins, and I was super fat. And so I started looking at everything I was doing and questioning everything I was doing, but I was questioning it at the scientific level. I was actually reading the research, and I was looking at the math, and I was trying to figure out where everything was going sideways. And so the questions I had about calories, because everybody tells me calorie deficits, calories in, calories out. If you're worried about fat, calories in, calories out, and there's no question. And if you don't believe this calories in, calories out, you're stupid and you just don't know what's going on. All right, fair. I have no idea what's going on with calories. The definition of a calorie is the amount of energy required to move 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. All right, so basically what a calorie is it's a measurement of potential thermal energy. So if you have 10 calories, what we know is that will move 1 kilogram of water 10 degrees Celsius. Fantastic. That's awesome if I'm doing thermal chemistry or thermal physics. I don't know how that works in the body though. How does too many calories make me fat? Because fat is a chemical. Fat is, depending on how you want to look at it, it's a lipoprotein. It's it's a triglyceride. It's a glycerol. Like there's actual chemical function. So how does a calorie, which is a measurement of basically energy, kind of like horsepower is to power, to force, how does that become fat? And so that's always the question I've had is how does it become fat, which is an actual chemical. And then people who tell me that calories in, calories out, calories, it's all about calories. Just look at the calories, focus on calories, write your calories down. Then they tell you that you should eat more protein. Well, hold on now, because now you're talking out two sides of your mouth. Because if calories are what matter, it doesn't matter if you eat all protein or all carbohydrates, because carbohydrates and protein are equal in the calorie equation. There's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, and there's 4 calories per gram of protein. So if you're talking about calories in, calories out, calories and proteins and carbohydrates are a dead even. There is no difference. And so that was one of my major issues, because I can walk you through how a protein would become fat. It's almost impossible. So for instance, you have to eat the protein, you have to digest it into its amino acids, absorb those amino acids. The amino acids that are then absorbed have to go to the liver, create what's called gluconeogenesis, where you make new sugar out of them. And then that sugar has to be able enough to feed the blood. And then if you made even more, which never happens, it would feed the brain. Well, you can feed the brain. I feed the brain with homeostatic ketosis. But then we have to feed all the muscles. Once it feeds all the muscles, then you have to create enough excess in the blood that the body would recognize it, create a hormonal insulin response, and then push that back to the liver to turn that glucose it made into fat. That process would require so much ATP, which is the actual energy function of the body. It's not a calorie, it's ATP. It would require so much ATP that your body would never do it. It's just absurd, because the amount, if you take a gram of fat versus a gram of protein, you can get about 100. It's about 100. The whole math ends up being it's about 100 ATP from fat, 40 from the same measurement of protein. So I don't find it very possible that you're going to eat a protein and your body's going to go through all those steps and spend all that energy to turn it to fat. So that's the reason people say, calories in, calories out, but eat high protein. They're wrong on the calories. They're close on the calories. The amount you ingest obviously matters. Hey guys. But the thing that we have to focus on is it's not the calories, it's the macros, because we have to start doing this chemically. Your body is a chemical engine. It's not a heat engine. If it was, we'd have smokestacks where we'd have expel that gas, because if you're going to combust a gas, if you're going to combust something, burn it for heat energy, it's going to produce waste gases, not chemically. So well, oxidation's burning. No, it's not. Iron oxide is rust. If you could take a piece of iron, set it outside, it will rust, it'll oxidize, but it won't burst into flames. So oxidation and burning are not the same thing. So when we talk about burning calories, that's not how the body works. You oxidize things. So if you start looking at it from a chemical standpoint, that's when I started understanding how it worked. So like I said, proteins are never going to become fat. Carbohydrates are dependent upon a couple of different things. So that's when we start talking about glycemic function, how quickly it turns to sugar, how much of an insulin response your body makes to it, and then how susceptible you are to turning things into fat. There's some genetic pieces in there. So there's a lot of chemistry in there. It's much, much easier to just explain it from a somatotype function and a glycemic index function. People understand that a lot better. So that was always my problem, was that, one, we had this thing that we were hinging everything on that didn't have a chemical function, and our bodies are chemical machines. So that was my first problem. The second problem was that, proteins and carbohydrates are wildly different. One is, like I said, almost never going to be able to make you fat chemically. The other one is either going to be good, sustainable energy, or it's going to make you really fat. And that depends upon, one, the glycemic index of that particular food, and then how well your body deals with it. And like I said, that's a somatotype thing. We'll talk about somatotyping tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have some slide function figured out. So, but that's how it works. The other thing about calories is that they say, if you eat too many calories, you will get fat. Well, the problem I have with that is we all know people who can eat anything they want, as much as they want, and never gain an ounce. My problem is that your system of measurement, your system of function either works or it doesn't. If it works for everybody, it's a good system. If it doesn't work for everybody, it's a bad system. And if you're trying to tell me that proteins and carbohydrates are identical in their function, you're wrong. So they just don't do that. So I got a question, where did I get all this information? Lots and lots and lots of research. I like NCBI. I like the National Institute of Health stuff. Harvard stuff's pretty good. It just depends on where it comes from and who financed it. And I'll get into some of that later. Like I said, I'll post some of this stuff. I will post on Pillars of Wellness. So if you guys go to Pillars of Wellness in a day or two, I'll have this video and I'll have the research links up. But I'll kind of go through some of that stuff as we go. So that's where a lot of my issues come from, is it doesn't make chemical sense, and we're chemical engines. And if you want to have a chemistry conversation, awesome. But if it's not a chemistry conversation, it's not a body conversation. That's where it is. But that's kind of my issues with it. And then when I started figuring out somatotyping, hormonal control, hormonal functionality, glycemic index, things like that, that's where we started figuring out, okay, now I can understand how these things work. Now I can manipulate them. Now I can burn fat at an unbelievable rate and figure out how to work things through. This is where we start talking about a glucose-fed state versus a fat oxidizing state, or even ketosis, which are not the same thing, but they're close. And so that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. So as we go through this, I'll explain it. You guys can take a look at it, judge it however you want to. Like I said, the information will be on pillarsofwellness.com here in a couple of days. And I'll just post some links, not all the links. I'll post some links to some research that kind of led me to this direction. I'll post the research on how a protein would become fat through gluconeogenesis, and how carbohydrates and fats become fats as they go through. Like fat's really easy. I didn't go through that one. Fat's really easy. That highly depends upon the carbon chain. So less than 12 carbon chains is your small, short, medium chain fatty acids. Those get absorbed instantly, and they're utilized like that for fuel. They can be stored. There's a lot of things on the internet that says they can't be stored. The chances they're going to be stored are low, but they can be stored. And then the higher ones are attached to chylomicrons and absorbed through the intestinal lumen and then taken throughout the body. So that's one of those things. I'll touch on this real quick, but I'm not going to go into it very deep. Cholesterol is one of those large carbon chains, extremely important. It's one of the big lies we've been told that cholesterol is bad for us. But we'll get into that when we get to cholesterol. If you guys have any questions at Chalmers Wellness, drop them in the comments, and we'll be able to kind of walk through and get all those answered. Thank you guys. Talk to you guys later.